20,000 years ago, Earth stood on the edge of annihilation. A frozen wasteland stretched from horizon to horizon. Temperatures plunged to -40. Continents were buried beneath walls of ice. Most species died forever. But one creature, fragile, hairless, soft-skinned, didn't just survive. It became the apex predator of the Ice Age. This is the story they never taught you. Because this isn't about survival, it's about domination. And the truth? It's still buried in your DNA. The last glacial maximum wasn't just cold, it was apocalyptic. Imagine walking outside and watching your breath crystallize and drop like glass. Imagine tracking prey through whiteout blizzards that rage for weeks. That was life. Not for a day or a year, but for centuries. And somehow, your ancestors didn't just endure it, they mastered it. Across Europe and Asia, archaeologists are uncovering evidence of technologies, behaviors, and adaptations so advanced they don't just challenge history books, they shatter them. And the most disturbing part? Those same adaptations, physical, mental, even violent, still live inside you. You've just forgotten how to access them. Picture this: London, buried beneath a mile of ice. New York, gone, swallowed by glaciers, frozen in silence. The oceans recede as if the Earth itself is holding its breath. 400 feet of sea level vanish. Beaches become cliffs. What was once coastline becomes wasteland. Continents fracture, ecosystems collapse. Rainforests die, rivers freeze. The air, once full of birdsong, now howls with nothing but wind. But the most terrifying detail? The chaos didn't come gradually. It came in waves. A paradise one year, a death zone the next. Tropical valleys became white deserts in a single lifetime. Snow covered crops, frost killed forests. Animals vanished, entire food chains blinked out. Over 70% of Earth's large mammals died, and yet humans remained. We didn't hide, we didn't retreat. We stared into the abyss and stepped forward. We didn't just adapt, we evolved into something unrecognizable. We didn't flee from the storm. We became the storm. At Dolní Věstonice, archaeologists uncovered skeletal remains with bone density 40% higher than ours. These weren't just survivors, they were superhuman. Their bones forged by necessity, their muscles sculpted by the cold. Their hands were broad and thick, capable of crushing ice and carving stone for hours without rest. Their feet wide and flat, designed to walk across miles of snowpack like living snowshoes. Every tendon, every ligament told the same story: adaptation through hardship, and their minds growing. During the Ice Age, average brain size increased by 15%, not over thousands of years, in real time. Not evolution in the slow sense, evolution under fire. They became faster thinkers, sharper decision makers, more collaborative, more strategic. Their brains weren't just bigger, they were wired for survival. But Neanderthals had big brains too, stronger bodies. And they still died out. Why? Because they played defense. Humans went on the offensive. We didn't hide from the cold. We turned it into a hunting ground. Some cave paintings show hunts, but others? They show obsession, patterns, repetition. Symbols that don't tell stories, they build strategies. Persistence hunting wasn't just physical, it was psychological warfare. Imagine stalking a mammoth for a month. Not with traps, not with brute force, but with fear. Relentless pressure, no rest, no escape. Until a 10-ton beast collapses from exhaustion and dread. This wasn't hunting, this was domination, and it didn't stop with animals. Some researchers believe the same tactics were used on rival human groups. Relentless tracking, nocturnal ambushes, whispered movements in the dark. Entire clans would abandon their camps, not from wounds, but from terror. What kind of mind invents that? Yours did. Because the terrifying truth? That capability is still inside you. The obsession, the patience, the predator's mind. Dormant, but not gone. Caves weren't just shelters, they were command centers. Inside, complex social zones, tool-making workshops, and rituals. Lots of them. Why? Because survival wasn't enough. We wanted control over nature, over prey, over each other. And we learned to weaponize winter. The cold became our camouflage. The ice, our armor. But the design went deeper. Fires weren't just for warmth. They were psychological anchors. They regulated emotion, coordinated social behavior, and encoded memory. Stone circles around the flames weren't random. They were seating hierarchies. The walls? Covered in pigments and symbols, maps, not murals. Initiation rites, not art. Children were raised in these caverns like apprentices in a war academy, learning silence, focus, coordination. Bone flutes echoed not for music, but for discipline. Home wasn't a place, it was a weapon system. And still, this isn't the most disturbing part. That's coming next. All across Ice Age Europe, we find the same tools, same tactics, same traps, thousands of miles apart. How? Because ancient humans built alliances, networks. This wasn't survival, this was strategy. Groups coordinated, shared intel, planned simultaneous hunts. But they didn't just collaborate, they competed. And they eliminated the weak. They mapped migration routes across continents, not just for animals, but for other humans. Signals were passed using smoke, mirrored flint flashes, and even synchronized drumming patterns heard miles away. It was the birth of intertribal intelligence. And when conflict erupted, it wasn't chaotic. It was orchestrated. Ambushes weren't accidents. They were rehearsed. They developed choke points on hunting trails, set bait fires, deployed decoys. These weren't primitive tribes. These were tacticians. If you think strategy began with empires, think again. It began with hunters whispering plans in the snow. They didn't just share resources, they shared power. And with it, the will to dominate. Human remains showed trauma. Weapon marks, mass graves. These weren't isolated incidents. They were campaigns. The Ice Age didn't just cull the unfit animals, it culled the unfit tribes. And only the most brutal, the most intelligent, survived. You are not descended from peacekeepers. You are the product of a prehistoric war. Some skulls were shattered with deliberate blunt force. Others bear deep blade cuts, clean, efficient, surgical. Arrowheads lodged in rib cages. Femurs snapped in flight. This wasn't chaotic violence, it was tactical. Entire camps show signs of sudden abandonment. Fires still warm, meals half-eaten. Bodies arranged in patterns, some defensive, some ritual. In Russia, France, the Levant, the same clues appear. Conquest, not coincidence. Territory wasn't shared, it was seized. Resources weren't divided, they were taken. This wasn't survival of the fittest, it was survival of the most ruthless. And those who endured, they passed down not mercy, but mastery. The art, tactical, the rituals, psychological armor, the tools, weapons of precision. Modern historians call it survival, but it wasn't. It was optimization. Every cave painting wasn't decoration, it was a war map. Every shelter, a classroom, every hunt, a test. What survived was a code, written in blood, stone, and ice. The gene markers still exist, buried in your blood. Under stress, under pressure, in chaos, they flicker back to life. Prisoners of war, disaster survivors, those pushed to the edge, become something else. You are not soft, you are not weak, You are the descendant of predators who turned apocalypse into opportunity. Your ancestors didn't survive by chance. They did it by transforming into thinkers, into killers, into creators of the cold. The question isn't, could you survive the Ice Age? It's, would you dominate it? Because one day, the cold may return. And when it does, will you remember who you are? If this story shook you, hit like, subscribe, leave a comment. Would you survive? Because the next storm isn't thousands of years away, it's already on the horizon.